Hi, this is Bill again. On this lesson, we'll continue about adding actions to a flow. So previously, we've learned about triggers and how a flow or a workflow has been triggered in ServiceNow. So we touch a bit about actions, and ServiceNow out of the box is quite powerful, and I would say very powerful on the different actions that you can already utilize provided by the platform. And these are some of the few examples that you will see. And I think this is quite small on what ServiceNow can basically offer, since what you're seeing here is only what's available. And I would say also not only available, but also what fits onto this article. And the Flow Designer can also gives you the ability to integrate with third-party applications, but I will not go deep on that one. I'll show you a little bit on how it works. But as you get yourself familiar with the actions and the behavior will give you a lot of familiarity on how the actions, that platform capability basically works. So let me give you a demonstration on how this actions and activities basically work. So let us navigate back to the Flow Designer and let us clean up on what we have created previously. And let's have a deep dive for your familiarity. And as we clean up, let us create a new flow. And as we drill down is like, let's say, sample action workflows. And under the need IT, let us build a flow. And as you're already familiar with the trigger, so let us in every created updated table under the incident record. So I will not add filters at this stage, but concentrate on the action. So as we go to the actions button, you will have so many features that you can utilize. So on the ServiceNow core alone, you will have the ability to update a record, create a task, log, send an email, and so on. So let us start by creating a record. So upon creating a record, you will see on the lower right, it will reflect the action that we have added. And now is, let's say, in every created record, updated record in the incident, we'll be creating a record in the problem table. And as we do that, it gives you the flexibility to choose any type of table from the platform. And you could be creating also a custom table. And depending on the business requirement on that custom table, you will be able to choose the fields as well. And now let's say active is to true. And let's have another value. So let's say short description or let's say description. So depending on how you design your fields in the table, and let's say the description will be coming from the dynamic table. So let's do that and let's say I'd like to find the short description. That will be our description, which is letter S. And as we do that, let's just navigate. And as you can see, we are now synchronizing the different steps and the table and records together in a single point of glass. Now, as we basically create this action, you will see on the top right that you can duplicate this action, delete this action, or add an annotation. So as a practice for readability and reusability, always think global and allowing your peers to understand what you're trying to achieve. So let's say, so your goal here is to create a problem record after incident has been created. So you can add more details here depending on the condition. So it can be a critical incident and you're creating a problem out of a critical incident to have a root cause analysis as an example. So now is like you're giving guidance to the developer or to your team on how you created your workflow. And now we can also duplicate if you want to, duplicate action. And as you can see easily, depending on what you're trying to achieve, what you can now reuse the old one as a second step. So you can create two records and you can be creating multiple actions or multiple records on a single incident record, so depending on your purpose. So let's say you would like to add an action in between. So you can also do that by clicking the plus icon. Now let's create another action. So let's say you are sending an email and you can see I've basically doing a search on the navigator and send email. And then as I do that, now it gives you the ability to, again, drag a record from the right. You can see the type is very important. Target record. So this is record as well. So we can now navigate to the left. And now we are now consuming the incident record to our email. Now, the to action, of course, it is dependent to an email address. It can be hard coded, but we don't recommend hard coded because it will lose the dynamic approach of having the flexibility of changes depending on the behavior of the incident record. And let's say on this example, say bill at example.com as a default, but you can also navigate to the incident record and the assign to, and let's say move it to the CC. But you have to ensure that the fields on this record of the email assigned to should contain an email from the user administration table. So I have a separate lesson about user administration where you basically create users inside ServiceNow, and the field email should also be populated upon creating a record. So I'll leave that for you to navigate and go back to my system administrator course. Now the subject is the same. So I could basically go back to the incident record, go to a short description depending on what you're trying to achieve to add, or it can be coming from a comment section. But on this example, um, let's say I will start with the record number of the incident. As I do that, and I can also combine it with the short description. So you'll have the number plus the short description in combination. So the receiver will have its context of the subject. So here is like similar. You can see that you can add HTML approach. You can type in and you can see there, then assigned to it could be since the step is the send email, you will see that it's after the create problem record. So you can also get information from here. So you can be probably communicating to the person who opened it. So open by, dear open by, and this is the body of the message. And you can drag the action status or the task depending on what you're trying to achieve. So it's quite powerful in what it can do. And for organization, you can add stages. So let's say the add stage. So in the service catalog on our previous demonstration, you can see stages. Is it an approval stage? Is it a sending email stage? So it gives you the picture set. At what stage are you at? Let's say this is like send email stage, and what's the value? Because what you see here is like the stages is giving you the ability, since ServiceNow is a service management platform, you can see duration of this stage because on each stage, how long will it take you to achieve this specific stage? So that's why it's more focused on the service catalog because the request will need a response or fulfillment. If you navigate back to the service catalog example from our previous lesson, it is more applicable to that specific use case. And as we go back to our lesson now, is like let's go to the action. The spokes here is basically the different actions that you can utilize. So in ServiceNow terminologies, we call it spoke. As we move forward, there's so many spokes. Like you have Docker spoke, so you have meaning integration to Docker, you have GRC integration. So depending on what license you have, what you have installed, if you go back to my first lesson on the system administration course as a prerequisite is you get to know the platform. So ServiceNow is a platform and it has the different workflows on top of it. So it's a platform of platforms which you can integrate to any type. So you have Azure as another example, and now it's ITSM. And in this ITSM integration, you will have update assignee and having a change request integration and so on. And as you basically navigate and drill down to this action, the behavior is the same. It will have the necessary fields that you can basically update depending on how the spoke is created. So there is no one size that fits all. It's something that you need to get familiarized and get your hands dirty. To give you a different aspect, the spokes in moving to the developer.servicenow, not developer, so docs.servicenow.com, you'll find a good documentation about Integration Hub available spokes. So Integration Hub sits on top of the Flow Designer. You will have the different spokes that you can utilize if this integration is basically installed. So on the left, you have the different applications that you can configure and integrate out of the box with ServiceNow and third-party applications. And let us say we go to Microsoft. Let's go do a control F, Microsoft, and let's say Active Directory. So if you have this installed, so you have a way to set up, ServiceNow will give you how to configure. So this is quite advanced, but once you have basically installed, then you will have these use cases where you can enter a name, credential, and so on. So that's setting up. Once you have basically set up, now you can utilize the spoke, and the spoke will have flow, user offboarding, user onboarding, and you can basically create the computer and manage Active Directory from the ServiceNow Flow Designer. So it's quite powerful since it will contain all these actions in the ServiceNow platform. Now let us go back to our example. So let us see what more actions we have here. And as we navigate, so we'll show you that you can see additional spokes which is not yet installed. And as you install them, there is like prerequisite, for example, Adobe Sign, Amazon S3, for example. So it will require additional license from the third party for you to be able to fully integrate and make this flow available also in ServiceNow. I hope you find this video helpful. I'll see you on my next video.